Welcome to the Stormsurf Video Surf Forecast for Sunday, November 10th. Looking at the North Pacific, significant wave height chart, current image, we see basically this blue dot here right in the center, significant of high pressure and virtually no swell production. High pressure, clockwise circulation in the northern hemisphere. You can see some sort of fetch, wind swell looking fetch north of Hawaii. Virtually nothing else going on. Everything is basically rotating around the high, but there's no way for storm development or any, the major storm corridor here is blocked by high pressure, so there's really no place for a storm to develop, or a gale for that matter. There's a little something trying to happen off the coast of California, U.S. West Coast, but basically it's a pretty calm pattern. First, we'll take a look at the jet stream flow over the North Pacific. These are winds at the 250 millibar level, really high in the atmosphere, and these winds tend to steer storm tracks and help to support storm formation. What you see is the jet stream is basically arching north, ridging north, up into the Bering Sea, tracking through the Bering Sea, then zooming back down in this sort of a backdoor trough thing that's going on off the U.S. West Coast and then back into the U.S. mainland. So basically anywhere that you would want to have a storm be, it isn't happening. The whole storm track is being driven north. This sort of a pattern here supports high pressure at the surface here, also up here. Only this trough right here is the least bit supportive of gale development, and there's no strong winds at all feeding down into the trough, and basically this is not a good situation. Let's go ahead and put this into motion, just sort of see what happens. As you look out even 24 hours, this pattern's only getting more pronounced. The ridge has plenty of wind in it going way north, just feeding high pressure down at the surface. But you do notice here, we'll put this in, here you go, there's this downward falling off the front side of the ridge, goes in and starts building this trough structure off the U.S. West Coast by Monday night, and that is a pretty good, healthy amount of winds, 130 knot winds plowing straight south. So that would support counterclockwise circulation at the surface and support low pressure development. So we'll go back. So that starts about Monday morning, goes through Monday. The trough, look at that, it sort of does this retrograde thing off the coast, which is kind of unusual, and gets pinched off basically by Wednesday night. It's just sort of sitting there, and the main flow is going completely over top of it. It's what you'd call a cutoff trough, effectively. And then it lingers and lingers, and then finally looks like it's starting to get assimilated. The other nice thing here is, so we're in Saturday, you notice the flow starts coming flat off Japan by Saturday and starts connecting up, and this is beginning to look more normal, typical. And so by Sunday you got something that almost kind of looks like a normal flow, but it's very weak, very diffuse, no significant winds going through this, and no real support for gale development. So basically the whole week is a wash, other than that one trough that we saw. We'll go spin this real quick. That one trough on like Monday, Tuesday type time frame in the Gulf. So now let's take a look at same situation, only at the surface level, surface pressure and winds. Right off the bat, you notice a 1044 millibar high pressure system right on the date line. If you recall from the previous images, you had that big ridge going up like this and down like this, and sure enough, right in the middle of it, here's high pressure, just like what you'd expect. You see a kind of an interesting northerly fetch, northeast fetch, sort of pushing towards the Hawaiian Islands. That's good for maybe some wind swell, but it's just about blowing over Kauai and the northernmost islands, so probably not great for conditions. The only gale thing that we see is completely encased by land behind the Kuril Islands, and not real interesting. So that's as of Sunday. Let's put this into motion, see what happens. Notice as of Monday morning, pressure is 1048 millibars, very symmetrical, strong, just blocking high pressure, locking down the North Pacific. But we do see, I'll put this back, so by almost Sunday night, you see some sort of low pressure off the U.S. West Coast starting to form a gradient with this strong high, and you get 40-knot winds, north winds, and Hawaii is sitting right down here at pretty much the main target. By Monday, you're up to 45-knot winds. That continues, and falling straight at the islands too. Small system, but it is some fetch. And it continues in some fashion even into Tuesday, and look at that, it regenerates even Tuesday night into Wednesday with 45-knot winds almost hitting 50 late Tuesday night. So that looks like a suspect swell producer for the islands, but virtually nothing aimed at the U.S. West Coast. We'll keep putting that into motion. By Thursday, it pretty much peters out as the trough gets pinched off here. All the energy gets cuts off, feeding the low, and it's gone. The good news is the big high pressure ridge. We can go back here and take a look. You know, as of even Wednesday night, it's starting to get weaker and weaker. And that's something that we'd like to see. Oh, here we go. And then you get into sorry, here we'll go back to Friday. You notice there is some high pressure that starts building off the U.S. West Coast. It sort of forms this typical summer-like gradient off of Cape Mendocino. You get 30-knot north winds here. That's good for wind swell down into central California. And it holds, you got almost 35-knot winds in there Friday morning. And then it starts fading out by Saturday, but not completely gone. And yeah, by Saturday night, you're down to 20, barely 25-knot winds, and the wind swell's gone. Now here's a nice, at least some hope. By Sunday night, a normal-looking gale starting to develop in the Gulf of Alaska. But look at this, another high-pressure system over the date line. The gradient thing going on between the low and the high, generating 40-knot north winds. Again, sort of aimed at Hawaii, but a long ways away, and nothing really aimed at the U.S. West Coast. So, but at least that's something that we can sort of wish that will produce something a week out. But for now, unless you're in Hawaii, the outlook is kind of dismal. So now we're going to look at significant wave heights in the North Pacific, and we're actually back to Tuesday of last week, so it's almost a week ago. There's this system that sort of wrapped up and formed just south of the Aleutians and right on the date line, 36-foot seas. And we talked about this in the previous forecast. It was kind of aimed at the U.S. West Coast and Hawaii. Hawaii got some small swell. I think it was in the 4 feet. It says 16, 17 second range. And about the same for California. That hit on Sunday. There was a couple of readings on some of the buoys in the central California area in the 5-foot range at 17 seconds, but in the San Francisco Bay Area, it was a rather north-angled swell, like 306, 308 degrees, was shattered by the Farallon Islands, and basically only half that size made it into the coast. There were waves that were head high, a little bit overhead in some spots. Ocean Beach might have done a little bit better, but it was far from optimal and not really good. So anyway, and you notice that system lifted up into the Bering Sea late last week as high pressure started building. You can actually see it there on the chart. And so we get back to now I'm just sort of going for it. And here we are on Sunday morning, high pressure evident. We had some wind swell, 18-foot seas heading towards Hawaii. That's about impacting the islands now. But basically, it's just this massive blocking high-pressure system. So we put this into motion. We're into Monday morning, and you see this fetch associated with the gradient between high pressure here and low pressure here. You get 28-foot seas in mid-Monday morning. By Monday night, you got this little area of 30-foot seas falling south, 28-foot seas Monday night, and then it kind of dissolves, but actually kind of continues to keep itself together into Tuesday night. And you get another shot of 32-foot seas aimed at the islands. So I think the islands are finally going to get some surf, and they're in pretty close proximity. So this is, we're talking about 900 nautical miles away or so. So that 2 pulses of swell look possible for the islands. That's good. It's kind of close, so it'll be kind of a raw swell. local wind charts suggest basically light trade, so that is a plus sign. A little bit more on the east, northeast to northeast trades, which might bring a little bit of lump into the swell, and certainly given the local nature of the storm, it'll be a raw swell, but at least there'll be surf. We'll put that into motion. So that continues into Wednesday, then finally fades out like Thursday morning. So that's a multi-run day of swell for the islands, regardless of the conditions. None of this is heading towards the U.S. West Coast. And you can see the high pressure effects up here, just really nothing going on. But by Friday, you start seeing the effects of the gradient here. We're looking at 15, 16 foot seas off of Northern California. That's good for a little bit of swell, probably for the early part of Friday and into the weekend. But then that just kind of peters out, and then basically there's nothing going on by the weekend until you get into Sunday night. That's a week from now. Supposedly you get this new little gale going on. Same sort of deal, high pressure here, low pressure here, gradient, 20-foot seas aimed basically due south. We can put the from a Northern California perspective, all that energy is going that way. None of it's going up the Great Circle chart, Great Circle tracks to Northern California. But from Hawaii, look at that energy. It's rotating straight into the islands. And so, whoops, okay, went a little too far, but that's pretty much it. The Hawaiian Islands are looking to get the most of this. Let's also just quickly go back and take a look at one other thing here. Here's that other system, Monday's system, and notice that the 358 degree Great Circle track. This is into Oahu, but it's pretty much valid for all the islands. Look at that, falling basically straight down the tracks. That's what you want to push swell, right into this target here. So this is a pretty good setup, actually, considering how quirky it is and how small it is. It might do all right. I'm trying to put a bit of a bow on this and just say it's not great, but it's better than anywhere else. So all right, let's look at the long-term picture now. First, let's take a look at the Southern Oscillation Index. You can see up here in days past, we've had this kind of long string of negative numbers, some of them pretty negative, but only for like 4 or 5 days. Now we're starting to move into a more positive number regime. This is the daily SOI. It's a very spiky, peaky kind of raw data, but it sort of gives you a hint of what's going on. So it suggests that this would all be indicative of the active phase of the MJO, Madden-Julian Oscillation, which tends to support storm development in the North Pacific. Looks like we're starting to move into the inactive phase with these positive numbers here, which kind of would shut down storm development, and certainly all the charts suggest that is the case. This index, the Southern Oscillation Index, tends to be a lagging indicator, so by the time it picks up on what's going on, it's already happening in the atmosphere. But it's kind of a good baseline for monitoring El Nino, La Nina, and phases of the Madden-Julian Oscillation. The 30-day average, running average, still negative, minus 2.36, but not deeply negative, pretty much neutral, basically. And the same for the 90-day average, where it's just hanging around in 1 or 2, which is not anything one way or the other, pretty much a neutral pattern. Next, we'll examine wind anomalies on the equator in the West Pacific, and especially this area right here towards the dateline 180 west. Sort of gives you an idea of what's going on with the Madden-Julian Oscillation. Easterly anomalies, that's what we're seeing here, clearly indicative of the inactive phase of the Madden-Julian Oscillation. We'll go take a look what's going on under Hawaii and over to Ecuador. Pretty much neutral anomalies. Let's go take a look and see what's going on a week out. Again, still easterly anomalies. Nothing particularly strong, but kind of persistent. Neutral on the dateline and basically neutral on the equator here, going over towards Central America. So this also tends to indicate we're in the inactive phase of the MJO, and certainly the surface level charts bear that out as well. Next, we'll look at outgoing long wave radiation. This sort of gives you, these are forecasts out about a little over 2 weeks. Gives you a sense of what's going on. This indicates a lot of reflectivity off the ocean surface, means no clouds, tends to mean high pressure, which are all signs of the inactive phase of the MJO. Over in the Indian Ocean, you see the exact opposite, lower than normal reflectivity off the ocean, and a sign of a building active phase of the MJO. The path of all this is west to east, so we want to see this degrading and moving east so that the active phase can move into the West Pacific, but we don't see that happening in the next 15 days here on the statistical model. And looking at the dynamic model, it's a little bit better in terms, the first couple of frames here in terms of the inactive phase degrading, but then this last phase or last frame suggests that it's only going to return. So typically each of these phases lasts about 3 weeks or so. So this is not unanticipated. We've been kind of in an active phase for a while now, so it's time to pay the piper. So we'll have about 3 weeks of not a whole lot of activity going on. Looking at yet another model, indicative of MJO, or that we use to look for MJO activity. This is up at the jet stream level. It runs kind of early. When it shows something here, either active or inactive phase, it's about a week ahead, maybe even a week and a half ahead of reality. So the greens tend to suggest the active phase of the MJO, and they're talking about mid-November. It's starting to develop in the West Pacific, but be kind of a short-lived event and be over the South America by early December, with yet another inactive phase building early December and pretty much going the whole way through December. The interesting part is none of these are like this active phase projected here is pretty weak. This inactive phase, pretty weak. And that's kind of what we've been seeing, the MJO pattern just hanging just either side of neutral, not pushing the atmosphere towards El Nino or La Nina. That's actually good news, because we've been suffering through 2+ years of La Nina-like conditions, the inactive phase of the MJO. There's a recent article that said the current 1-year rainfall for the San Francisco area is the lowest it's been in 164 years. That assumes that, and that's a calendar year running from January 1st to January 1st. Well, we still got two months or so to go till we're into the end of December, so it's kind of a premature statement. But it really does suggest there has not been much rain, that the inactive phase has been pretty strong, and that some hangover of La Nina has been going on for 2 or 3 years now. And I think anyone that surfs kind of recognizes that we haven't had significant class surf of any normal proportions or amounts during that period of time. We'll do a quick look at subsurface temperature anomalies. The point being here, towards the date line, there's this pocket of warmer than normal water 150 meters down, and we've been watching this steadily progress east. The hope is that it actually hits, Central America, gurgles up and starts bubbling on the surface back, warming surface temperatures. So this is what you'd call a Kelvin wave, or a symptom of a Kelvin wave. We'll see whether it actually makes it the whole way across the Pacific and then starts erupting on the surface. But it's a good sign. It's better than all summer there was this blocking pocket of cold water sitting right here. So that's not happening. It's kind of neutral temperatures with warm water moving to the east. So that's a good sign. And here's the surface level water temperature anomalies for the 7th. We're kind of looking for the new update, but it hasn't posted yet. This is kind of nice. There is some slight warm water building up along the equator here. I mean, this is typically where, if you saw a bunch of warm water piling up here, that would be El Nino. We're not seeing that. We're seeing just little fragments of warmer than normal water. But if it was all cold, that's La Nina. Certainly that's not the case. It's kind of a neutral mixed bag pattern here. So and this hasn't changed a whole lot in about a week now. There's this pocket of warm water also that's been coming off of Japan, moving towards the U.S. West Coast, but it just can't quite make it in here because there's been high pressure that's just driving northerly winds upwelling. So you see this pattern here that's significant of high pressure, or indicative of high pressure, circulating that way and just driving upwelling out on the peripheries. Nothing super strong, nothing like what it's been the past couple years, but still it's kind of hanging there. Off of Africa, sort of warm water building up there too. Not particularly warm. I mean, we're talking, you know, maybe half a degree. So, but that's all good news. It's better than cold water. All this is really saying is we're kind of in a neutral phase right now, neither cold nor warm, just in no man's land, basically waiting for something to happen. The good news is, as warm water builds here, hopefully, or even if it holds, that should help fuel the jet stream a little bit later this winter. We're thinking maybe the January, February time frame. So if there was an opportunity for storm development, and that's when it would be. Early this summer, there was a lot of cold water running through here, and that's why we're seeing kind of a dampening of the storm track right now. It takes a couple of months for whatever is happening here to manifest itself up in the atmosphere. So we're in the hangover from the summer, and hopefully this warmer water by late in the winter will actually get some traction up in the atmosphere and help fuel the jet stream and storm development, but that could be wishful thinking too. So that's pretty much it for this update. High pressure, kind of locking everything down for the next week or so. So swell development will kind of be marginal over on the U.S. West Coast. A little bit of something for Hawaii. They deserve it. They've kind of been shut out for a while, so that's okay. But nothing significant happening for anyone. It's just get what you can, make the most of it, and we'll try to wait out this inactive phase of the MJO. Give it a week or two, and hopefully we'll be in a better place. Thanks again for watching. We'll do this again next week. Hopefully we'll have better news for you, and thanks for watching. See ya. Bye.